Well, in our first story, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, has urged President Akufo-Addo to sign the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill, also known as the Anti-Witchcraft Accusations Bill. The Member of Parliament for Medina, who petitioned CHRAJ on the matter, said the President is being political about the bill.
The Commission, in an advisory opinion signed by the Commissioner, Dr. Joseph Whittal, charged the President to take urgent steps, including any legislative steps that will resolve any constitutional concerns raised by the President regarding the bill. The Commission believes the bill, if signed, would go a long way to complement the 1992 Constitution, the various international laws and treaties, and further enhance the country's democratic tenets and enviable human rights record. Member of Parliament for Medina, Francis Xavier Sosu, who championed the bill through a private member's bill, expressed gratitude to the Commission. He says the President is just being political about it.
There's nothing barring the President from signing these bills into law. Not only this one, also the Armed Forces Amendment. Because in fact, we've done the fiscal impact analysis. We have seen that, look, you cannot even place financial, monetary value on human life. So the bill itself has not sparked any controversy. In fact, in Parliament, the President has representatives. They are the majority in Parliament. But these bills passed by consensus. I think that the President has meddled a bit in politics when it comes to this bill, and I hope that will cut off the politics.
It will be recalled that on March 28,
Former Chief Justice Sufai Akufo has commended Labour unions for fiercely opposing the move by the management of SSNIT to sell 60% stake in 4 of its hotels to Rock City Hotel. Speaking in an exclusive interview with Alfred Okansi, Sufai Akufo said SSNIT had no basis in justifying the botched transaction.
This conversation recently about the botched SSNIT Rock City deal, well, it didn't go through, but then again...
Thank God. God bless the unions.
The labor unions?
Yes.
You were irked about it?
Irked about what?
The entire
transaction, the purported transaction.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Conflict of interest is conflict of interest.
They say there's
you
no
can't
conflict.
be the judge and you can't and the jury. You can't be the lawyer and the judge. You can't be the litigant and then you are also sitting, after you've given your evidence and everything, and it's time, your lawyer has done the submission and it's time to determine the outcome. Then you're now going to go and sit among the jury and you are part of that.
But the agreement minister says there was no conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest is not defined by the individual. And sometimes, yes, conflict of interest when you're managing standards. It's part of performance standards. And when you're managing those are called ethical standards. When you're managing ethical standards, sometimes it is simply perception. Perception. Will a reasonable man in the street, in law school, we would say, will the reasonable person on the Latebi Okoshi bus, they don't have Latebi Okoshi buses anymore, but will the reasonable person on the Latebi Okoshi bus, if you were to tell them of this, what will they say about it? And if you can surmise that they will say, sir, that it smells, then it smells. And when you're a public person, just because there's no law that says you cannot do it, does not mean you should do it. Even in the Bible, it says, I can do all things, but not all things are good. Not all things are good.
But even SSNIT justify it.
Oh, don't mind them. Of course they will justify it because they have run down the hotels, and just like in the public sector, a lot of public properties have been run down just so that the values will be run down And always at the end of some cycle or the other, they do sweetheart deals and do distributions among themselves. SSNIT can say I've defamed them. I don't care.
Well, they said they were doing this in the interest of you and I.
Oh,
pension.
definitely not I didn't think it was in my interest. And if they had come to ask me, I would have said no. Is that the only person who can buy these shares of SSNIT?
Well, let's do some politics now. The opposition National Democratic Congress says the decision of the party to launch the 2024 campaign in Tamale is a challenge for the region to vote massively for the party. Now, according to the party's Deputy National Communications Director, Godwin Akok-Gun, a vote for the NDC in December is a vote for a return of massive infrastructural projects in the north. He was speaking ahead of the party's campaign launch in Tamale on Saturday, July 27.
We must quickly follow up with our campaign. So we decided to choose a region where, His Excellency will start his campaign. And the best place is to look at one of your strongholds. Today, we can boldly say that out of the 16 regions, we can boldly say that we have 14 of them as one is one of our strongholds. 14 of them can be said to be our stronghold. Looking at the results that come, we are yet to break even with Eastern region, and we are yet to make a huge inroad in Ashanti region. We acknowledge those two places as the strongholds of the MPP. So obviously, it didn't come in as one of the places that we have must lost our campaign. But when it happens, there must be testimonies of their involvement, and they also want to set a standard here that next 4 years, next 8 years, wherever the campaign launch will go, they will be comparing it to Tamale.
We'll stay on elections, and the NDC has demanded an explanation from the Electoral Commission to explain discrepancies in the total number of eligible voters announced recently by Chairperson Jean Mensa in Parliament. Now, amidst mounting scrutiny and controversy, the EC faces renewed criticism over discrepancies in voter registration figures. Double Crosby Annan has more in this report.
In yet another episode of alleged miscalculations or mistakes by the Electoral Commission, the opposition, the National Democratic Congress, is again questioning the numbers put out by the Electoral Commission as being total number of valid voters on the electoral roll as inaccurate. Now, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensa, while in Parliament, mentioned the total number of eligible voters as 18,681,366.
I'm pleased to note that the total number of valid voters on our register to date adds up to 18,681,366.
Now, adding previous registration numbers since 2020, that is 17,027,641 plus 910,996 in 2023 and 2024's registration numbers, which is 778,447. Madam Jean Mensa's figure falls short by a whopping 35,718. The NDC says, adding previous registration numbers, the figure put out by the Commission does not add up, and they are looking for explanations.
As the figures were not accurate, they are not adding up. They themselves, it took them by surprise that they will get their IT department to come in our next meeting to demonstrate these figures and where the problem is coming from so that we can all be at the same path.
Now, this disagreement over numbers comes after initial errors by the Commission during the limited voter registration exercise. Jean Mensa, while in Parliament, said the Commission had overcome that challenge.
In our bid to provide timely information of the registration details to the citizenry, we missed a number of important steps in our data generation process. This resulted in some mistakes being made on some of the slides that we put out. We have since assessed our methods and introduced more rigorous processes, which we believe will guarantee accurate data going forward.
Speaking with Dr. Srebo Kwaku, Director of Training at the Electoral Commission, he said the Commission will have to clean the figures because they are provisional figures.
We should also bear in mind that because of their provisional nature, we are going to do the challenging issue, which will take some names off. The multiple ones will also take some names off, but these are all provisional figures.
Meanwhile, the Commission says all is set for the upcoming MOPAP registration exercise scheduled for August 1 to 3 at all 268 district offices of the EC, public universities, and 41 prisons.
We are going to compile a MOPAP registration from 1st to 3rd of August. Which are the areas that we are going to, which are the centers? I'm saying that the centers are the 268 district offices of the Commission, the 26 public universities that we are aware, then 41 of our prisons.
Noble Crosby and TV3 News, Accra.
I'll be sure to stick and stay with us right here on your Election Command Center. But away from elections, students at the various colleges of education are confused over the continuation of the academic calendar. Now, whilst others argue an increase in the credit hours will make up for the lost time, some say an extension of the academic calendar beyond September 7 will come at a financial cost to them. Grace Hamwajiman has been engaging some students and reports.
It's a big school campus here at the Accra College of Education, but with little academic activity. Students of colleges of education will know their fate regarding the ongoing strike by their tutors, as the National Council of the Colleges of Teachers Association of Ghana convenes an emergency meeting to deliberate on the way forward. Of much concern to students is how to recoup the lost time.
We've been trying to learn on our own, but it's not really helping like the lecturers should have been around to help. And if they say we should write exams, most of the lecturers didn't even take before the strike. Most of them too didn't give us the course outline before they left. So actually we are just doing our own things, which you don't even know whether it's part of the course outline or it's not even part. So when they bring exam, it will be very difficult for us to write.
It's a 3-month semester, so we budgeted for it. Meanwhile, we are on strike and we've used part of our money that we have on us for the past 41 days already.
Level 400 students who reside outside school because of school rules say an extension of the calendar will come at a financial cost, especially with accommodation and rent.
It hasn't been easy because we've paid for hostel fees for 4 months, which is a semester. And if our lectures don't return anytime soon, we are going to incur additional costs because we are feeding ourselves and also accommodation, paying for rent and all that.
President of the Teacher Trainee Student Association, Abdul Razak Swale, argued for an immediate intervention to resolve the impasse.
Our appeal has always been straightforward and the same because we want our teachers back to the classroom as soon as possible. We have written an appeal to CTAC to consider the effect it's having on students and reconsider some things and get back to the classroom as soon as possible. As we keep appealing to them, we appeal more to the government because these were discussions that were held in previous years.
This strike action by CTAC will go down the history of Ghana as one of the longest ever experienced. Students here are confused on whether to opt for an extension in the academic calendar or a stretch in the academic hours to include weekends, evenings, and other times. Well, this will only be determined from the outcome of the series of meetings that are expected in the coming days. Grace Hamwa Ajiman, TV3 News, Accra College of Education.
Well, let's do some health now. And lab managers and scientists in public hospitals across the country have asked government to facilitate and conclude negotiations on the conditions of service without delay. Now, according to them, the delay coupled with the current economic hardship has compelled over 19 lab scientists to leave the country in search of greener pastures.
In June, the lab scientists across the country declared a nationwide strike over delay in concluding negotiations on their conditions of service. The National Labour Commission therefore summoned the lab scientists and government into a closed-door meeting. After deliberations, the Labour Commission gave a directive that the government should ensure that negotiations are concluded. More than a month now, agreement on negotiations have not been reached, resulting in similar agitations on the health sector. The lab scientists have complained the delay has worsened the already precarious conditions of service. The Ashanti Region branch of the lab scientist, who is also a lab manager, Dr. Eric Kofi Edu, said some members have decided to resign from the work.
I checked our records in the hospital. I went to speak with the HR people, and they were telling me in less than a year we have about 90 staff that have left the hospital. So it is at an alarming rate. The country has gotten to, a place. Apart from our condition of services that we are fighting for, things are not going as we expect. And so we think that for us to be able to stay, they need to do things better.
Board chairman of the Society of Medical Laboratory Managers in Ghana, Dr. David Saki, called on government to consider the welfare of lab scientists. Responding to their concerns, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu, assured government commitment to address their issues. He also emphasized on the quality of healthcare delivery by lab scientists.
It's important that lab results that you get from 10 different labs with the same sample should be identical. And sadly, we have concern that that is not so. And the factors are many: human resource, lack of money, and then so on and so forth. But if you get the wrong lab results, that means that you'll be treated for what you do not have, or you may not be treated for what you have.
Later, the lab managers convened an emergency meeting to discuss challenges in lab practice at the various hospitals. The theme for the discussion was lab managers in challenging settings.
It took members of Parliament over 4 suspensions of sitting before the commencement of the debate on the 2024 budget. The majority's first stoked controversy when it shortly after the statement described the NDC minority as not prepared for a debate. Responding in equal measure, the minority threw a challenge to the flag bearer of the MPP to rather debate them as MPs.
You move unemployment from 8% to 14%. And all you can tell the unemployed who are looking up to you, to tell them how you create a job for them, to tell them how they will get the next meal. What you tell them is that you will give them mobile phones so that every man will pay 1 cedi, 2 cedi. How does that create a solution to the unemployment situation? This is a visionless government. The kind of phones that the youth of today, the Gen Zs use, the speaker is iPhone 14 and iPhone 16. One of it is about 20,000 cedis. By the time they finish paying 1 cedi and 2 cedi, I'm not sure we'll find even Dr. Baumier's bones.
The fact remains that we have performed well, we have made progress, and that seems to confound a lot of people. But Mr. Speaker, I must say that we did this together. This progress is for everybody. It's for our businesses, it's for the people of Etiwa East and the nation at large. Mr. Speaker, our future as a nation is brighter with the MPP government. Let us protect this future for the sake of our people.
In 2022, cocoa production declined by 34% to 683,000. But Mr. Speaker, administrative expenditure increased to 2.6 billion. Mr. Speaker, 2023, cocoa production declined further to 654,000. 654,000 cocoa production. Administrative expenditure increased again to 3.4 billion Ghana. So they are spending the money in the offices.
Listening to comments from the other side, even the best growth figures reported under the NDC before they exited in 2016 was 3.4%. Mr. Speaker. Coming out of COVID and making sure that we've stayed within the parameters of the IMF program, the same IMF has revised the growth rate of the country to 4.7%.
Well, that's all we have for you right here on TV3 for the 6 a.m. news. A pleasure coming to you always. My name is Judith Brown. We'll go for a short break. We'll be back with the rest of New Day. Good morning.